Are any of those roads under construction in the southeast?
Yes, right now the Enugu-Onitsha road has been, in fact, the Enugu-Onitsha road has been under construction forever. You will always see bulldozers on the road doing nothing. They grade and then they will put in 6 inches of tar or 3 inches of tar when that kind of a major highway probably requires 2 feet or 1 foot or something, thick tar. If you come into Enugu, the city, you see what a governor who knows what he's doing has done there. People here, you celebrate the governor of Lagos. You need to send out to Enugu and see what the quiet, introverted man who runs the state has done. The roads are so thick. Everywhere you see roads thick, so that you see that in 3-4 years' time, you are still going to be motoring on good roads. It doesn't make any noise. So, yes, Enugu-Onitsha is being worked on as we speak, but it is such inferior work. Every time I pass there, I see people doing something there, and I know that some guys who are too big to be handled are making a killing from the federation account and doing nothing there. And we have become so laid back, nobody is complaining anymore.
Well, you see, there are also lots of questions which continue to just ring out there about this particular contract revocation in Bi-Courtney. I mean, you got people asking, is it a valid contract? Is it a voidable contract? Because yes, we talk about meaningful fight against corruption, and now we talk about, could there be a link between this report we see in the media about the principal of Bi-Courtney being charged with some sort of laundering and all of those? In the same breath, the country wants the president, the executive arm to fight corruption.
Yeah.
So, where do the people stand in fight corruption, or is it connected, or is it being... they're not speaking up yet.
Well, if there was no clause in the contract to say that if Mr. Wale Babalakin SAN, if he is found to be involved in one thing or the other, one allegation or the other, the contract should be then every other thing he's doing for the government should be revoked. Then you cannot revoke.
Could it be a condition precedent, concurrent, or subsequent?
Who knows? We are not. We don't have the information. We don't see the contract. But I don't think there's anything wrong in itself if the contract with the company Bi-Courtney was revoked. It's not wrong in itself, as long as the conditions were spelled out. Perhaps at 6 months after the contract was awarded, you should have done this bit. And maybe they have failed to meet with the conditions of the contract. And then, like you said, is it a voidable contract? Is it something that, was there something wrong? We don't have this information. And this is part of the problem of governance in Nigeria. Why should there be such obfuscation of issues? Why are things so darkened? You know, this is a democracy. We go to vote every 4 years and we put you there. And if you revoke the contract, you're doing it on our behalf, in our name. So you have a duty to let us know clearly these are the problems. Otherwise, we begin to feel that maybe there's some internal power play. Maybe I didn't give enough of my share, enough of your share, what you are supposed to get. The contribution I should have given, I didn't give it, and so, or I gave too much to X and not to Y, and so, well, I'll show you, I'll give you.
So that's the W11 FM.
W11 FM was in it for me. W11 FM.
So if it's not properly defined, there could be some trouble.
Yes, absolutely. There's got to be a clear definition of when a contract will be stopped or terminated. It's got to be defined in the contract. But most importantly, we the people need to be informed. This is why we have done this. Otherwise, it leaves room for the rumor machine in Nigeria to really...
which never goes to sleep.
It never goes to sleep.
Is it that people... Do you see transparency, for instance, in the way contracts are handled in the country, even though people may not have all of the story all the time, but the one they've got, do they get a sense, you for instance, you get a sense of, yes, there's transparency in this place, they're doing it to the best of their ability, but people just misconstrue and misunderstand, or possibly, even if it's innocent misrepresentation of the way things play out?
You've used the word I've been looking for, transparency. There is... And I wish the government would not be hyper-sensitive about this. They need to stop thinking that Nigerians just like to criticize. They've got to rework their communication machinery. Transparency is is not there, or the feeling is there that there's insufficient transparency. And you know, perception is your reality. What you perceive is your reality. And the bulk of Nigerians, and it's bad when people like me who read newspapers and watch the TV every day, don't get a sense of transparency. Yes, at the end of the Wednesday meeting in Abuja, a minister addresses with two other ministers, or a governor addresses, and by their sides, and then they're telling us these are the contracts that have been awarded. But how often do we see adverts in the press? And I think that beyond that, there should also be an explanation about how they came about, why they gave out the contract. This has become essential. It may not be so in the rest of the world. The necessity to explain how did we decide to give the contract to ROCC, for instance, and not to XYZ.
You don't think that we're making the government look weak or cheap?
Well, in Nigeria, it has become an imperative because the contracts are not being executed. If the contracts were being executed, what do I care who did the contract? I don't care who did it. If it is the village chief in my village who did the contract, I don't care, because it's being done. But where the contracts are not being executed and there is apparently no political will to bring these infractions
What
to
about
book.
the state governments? Because, I mean, the federal government is one thing.
Yes.
The states also. If there's a close look at the way state governments also handle some of these contracts roads. In the southeast, for instance, in Imo State, there are reports here that subcontractors, was it yesterday and the day before, protesting the fact that contracts that were awarded to their principals, no payments being made, even before they were even awarded or while they were awarded, the process that was used in awarding them was also questioned. People ask, how did the governor award contract to these people? There was no due diligence, there was no bidding, people just going and doing all sorts of things on the roads, no process, no structure. So the states also need to be asked some questions here.
Yes, I thank you for drawing our attention to the states, because we continue to focus on federal government. Yes, we really need to spread this around, because what we speak, what is true of the federal government is true of the states. Of most of the states, there's really nothing happening. And when the contracts are given out, in fact, the federal government, to be fair to the federal government is even much more transparent than most of the states.
Wow.
Yes, you don't even get to know, particularly states that are not under media scrutiny. Like the states under media scrutiny are usually in the West, because the West is where the bulk of the media are. But the further you get away from the West, the less scrutiny. And then so it's good that the contractors in Imo State, for instance, have reason not to say, hey, excuse me, this is what is happening. If they didn't do that, you and I would never hear about it. So definitely the contracts are being awarded. Nobody knows how it's even being done, who it's being given to. It's just there. And but there are a few states we must single out. We must single out Akwa Ibom. We must single out Rivers State, Enugu State. I can't single out every state because I'm not all over the country, but these are places I have seen clearly that there is action happening every day. You can see infrastructure being built all over the place. Whether they are following the process and advertising the contract, I don't know. But when you go there, you get a sense that this place is better today than it was a few days ago. So we need to do a total reworking of our giving out of contracts for infrastructure, state and federal. These things are being given out according to the whims and caprices of who is in charge. And when you give out a contract according to your whim and caprice, then you're not going to be able to bring the person to book. If I gave a contract to my sister or a benefactor and I didn't follow the process, first of all, the chances are that the person you gave the contract to does not even have the wherewithal. So he may get the contract and sell to somebody else, and guess, which is what happens a lot of times. I get the contract, I don't have the infrastructure, the wherewithal, the logistics. I sell to somebody who has, and the person now doesn't have enough, left after he bought the contract to execute. And so we begin to have, I've forgotten the word for it, but you begin to increase the cost of the contract, begin to apply for more increases of the cost. In any case, there's delay. In any case, when the work is done eventually, perhaps it is much more inferior than what should have been.